Well, let's go over to the other New York team that's taking on a very tough team, Carolina Hurricanes, the number 2 team in the Metropolitan Division, and the New York Islanders. Anthony, we know this is the setup. We know both teams have one more game to play, but give us the overview of this series.
A rematch from last year, right? This is what kind of Gary Bettman wanted when he had this format to establish rivalries, and for the second year in a row, these two teams are playing each other as the 2-3 matchup. So, obviously, the Islanders, I'm sure, certainly remember what happened last year and how that ended up. They pushed Carolina a little bit. I mean, they were one goal away in Game 6 from having this be a 7-game series. We all know that Stastny scored on a goal that, if they replay that play, Sorokin's going to stop it for, 10 more times in a row. So it was but that's hockey, unfortunate bounce, and the Hurricanes advanced. But, I thought last year, the Islanders played them harder than I expected. And, this year, the teams are somewhat similar with some new faces on each side. But I'm curious to see how the Islanders play this team under Patrick Roy as opposed to how they did under Lane Lambert. The Islanders play a different style now. And, I think, for the Islanders, similar to where if they would have played the Rangers, all the pressure's on the Carolina Hurricanes right now. I mean, they came close to winning the President's Trophy. It's on them. The Islanders are a team that, not many people picked to make the playoffs. I think there were some that did, but there are also some that said that maybe they'd miss out. But so here they are, hopefully playing free with no pressure on them. And, Patrick Roy has them motivated. And again, the Hurricanes are hot right now, yes. But you remember, the Islanders are 7-0-1 in their last 8 going into tonight's finale against Pittsburgh. So they're coming in feeling good about themselves. And, I think, it's important. If you remember last year, they dropped both games in Carolina. And that's not going to be a recipe that's going to equate to them winning the series or changing the script from last year. So I think it's going to be really important for the Islanders to try to take one of these games and rally and go back to UBS, steal the home ice, and have it be 1-1. Because last year they were behind the 8 ball from the beginning. But I'm here for it. I'm ready to go. It's playoff hockey. It's the best time of year, and I can't wait for it to get started.
Phil, what's one of your X factors that you're looking into the series?
For Carolina, I would have to say you're probably looking at someone like Jordan Staal. And I mean, if he's heavily relied on to be the checking guy, the shutdown guy. I mean, the Islanders have a little more offense this time around with an improved versions of Barzal and Horvat. I know regular season numbers don't really matter at the end of the day when it comes to the playoffs, but I mean, those guys are playing better this year than they were last year. So I think there's going to be a little more defensive responsibility on Jordan Staal. I think he'll also have to chip in a bit offensively too. So his workload, I think, is going to be tested, if you will. The real X factor to me on the Islanders is going to be Kyle Palmieri. And that's going to be whether or not he can give them that support goal scoring, that supplemental offense to kind of boost them up and get them some goals is going to be big, because if he can't, then the Islanders become a one-line team and their offense is coming from maybe 2 or 3 people at most. So they're going to need secondary scoring from guys like Palmieri in order for them to win this series.
Well, you took my under-the-radar player for the Islanders, so I'll mention somebody else later. But I got to tell you, this series, this really needs to stay 5-on-5. And the thing is, it can. The Islanders are the second least penalized team in the league. If they keep it at 5-on-5, or even if they get power plays, they can actually work and make an upset. Because also the other problem is Carolina, we're always going to look at their goaltending. They're going to get tested, and they're going to get tested. Probably their 2 best tests the last few weeks was 2 games against Boston. Now they're getting the Islanders, and the Islanders are motivated, and they're playing well. They're playing very well right now. They don't look like the team that lost 6 in a row last month after winning 6 in a row. They look like the team that won 6 in a row, and then they did it again. And Anthony's going to say what their record is before. I think it's 7-0-1, Anthony.
Yeah.
And going into tonight, which is a meaningless game. So, Anthony, what's your X factor?
You know, for the Hurricanes, I'm going to say Jake Gensel, that their new shiny toy they got trade deadline. You know, the knock on Carolina was that they didn't have that scoring punch legitimate to help put them over the edge. Yeah, there's Aho and Svechnikov has been dealing with injuries, but they needed more scoring, and they got that in Jake Gensel. You know, if we know what Aho is going to give you, we know what Svechnikov is going to give you. If Gensel can continue to be that high end player, that might be a little too much for the Islanders to handle. So I think if he has a really good series, that might be hard for the Islanders to contain. For the Islanders, I was going to go at Palmieri as my X factor, but being a Phil used them, I'm gonna pivot. I'm gonna go Brock Nelson. Last year, Jordan Staal was out against Barzal as much as Brind'Amour can get that matchup. And that's so with Barzal always being shadowed, that hurts the Islanders' offense. And so if Brock Nelson can really play like the way we all know he can, and produce, that would be maybe a little bit of a problem for Carolina, because now they have yet another center that's going to drive play and score goals, and they can't put all their eggs in one basket with having Slavin out there against Barzal, Staal. And that would be a little harder for the Hurricanes to contend with. So Nelson has always been pretty good in the playoffs for the Islanders. He was great in their conference final runs. Last year he had 5 points in the 6 games against Carolina. If he could do even a little better this year, I think that would go a long way with helping the Islanders.
It's amazing, by the way. You guys have heard people say, possibly in the past, Gensel wouldn't be anything without Crosby. Gensel without Crosby got 25 points in under a month. Wow. That's how good he's been.
That's good. That's really good.
All right, Phil, under the radar, who do you got?
I can't believe I'm saying this, honestly, but looking at his playoff history, I'd have to put him here because of his struggles. Marty Necas for Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
He has not been good in the playoffs. He's got 21 career points in 48 career games in the playoffs, including 7 last year in 15 games and 4 goals. The year before, in 2022, 5 assists, 0 goals in 14 games. Like that's just not it. It's not good enough for him. It's not good enough for Carolina. If he continues to struggle in the playoffs, you got to wonder if they maybe look at moving him, because I think he kind of is what he is, and he is a good player. But if this is somebody that's going to disappear come playoff time, you may need to move him for something. So if he doesn't show up in this series, there's going to be a lot of questions raised about his game and his future in Carolina. I mean, for the Islanders, I'm going to probably have to say Pajot. I think that they're going to need him to channel a little bit of what he was doing against the Rangers in 2017 and start to become that player to really kind of get over the hump against Carolina. I keep hearing, talking about slaying dragons and slaying demons. I mean, Carolina is the Islanders' demon, if you think about it now.
They're definitely their dragon.
It's their dragon that they have to deal with. 2019, last year, this year. I mean, Washington needed to slay Pittsburgh in order to get over the hump and win the cup. I mean, it would go a long way for the Islanders if they beat Carolina.
Anthony, I'm going to go right back to you. Who would be your under the radar guys?
For Carolina, it's Stefan Noesen. He's got that 14. He has 14 goals for them during the year. He hurt the Islanders a little bit last playoff series on the power plays in front of the net. Similar Kreider deflecting pucks, always just seems to hurt them. So, and he's another guy that provides secondary scoring behind the guys like Teravainen, Aho, Svechnikov, Gensel. So, if he could be a factor in the series, that would help Carolina. For the Islanders, Pajot is certainly a good one. I'm going to go with the captain. I'm going to go with Anders Lee. 20 goals this year, which isn't bad on the surface. You guys score 20 goals, so that's solid. But he's the captain. You want more out of him. I think, he's a guy that this is his type of hockey, playoff hockey. He's a big, strong guy, mucks it in the corners in front of the net. He's got to really make it hell for, Kachekov or Anderson, whoever's in goal. Be hard on the defense in front of net. Burns, he's got size. So, he's got to go out these guys and be a physical presence and chip in. If he could score, especially on the power play when they get opportunities, that would help the Islanders a long way. And, again, he's their captain, and he's the guy that gets them going. And I think he needs to have a solid series here for the Islanders.
You guys already took one of mine that I used in the article, which was Kyle Palmieri. So I'm going to go in a complete different direction and say Simon Holmstrom. He could change things around with a shorthanded goal. He's got 5 of them this year, and he was looking excellent with Pajot. Both of them have picked up their play as of late. I would not be surprised if those two have a pretty good series, especially the way Pajot has been playing. For the Carolina Hurricanes, I'm going to go with a guy that none of us have mentioned, and he scored 30 goals, Seth Jarvis. I mean, Seth Jarvis, how is he flying under the radar in this? But he is. You can go through a lot of different things, and then people aren't even going to mention Seth Jarvis because you're so focused on Jake Gensel and Aho and all the other players that were in there, and Natchez, who was the leading scorer last year. Look out for Jarvis. He's been playing excellent hockey right now. Phil, what do you have?
I don't want to feel like I'm bashing the Islanders, but I don't see it. It just and then the Carolina just got Gensel as well. I got to go Carolina at 5.
Wow.
And I think the way that the Islanders can make this a series is if Sorokin regains his form. That's another thing. Is Varlamov going to start, or is Sorokin going to start? Because Sorokin hasn't been great down the stretch. Varlamov's really been the guy. But, unless Sorokin finds his game and just goes to total God mode, I just don't see the Islanders having it. They lack the secondary scoring for me. The defense isn't as good as it was years ago. Just for me, I think the Islanders are really behind the 8 ball here, and Carolina is so deep, and especially after the addition of Jake Gensel, I think they finally have the scoring that they've needed for quite some time.
I am actually going to go a little bit lighter on the Islanders on this one. I am going to go Carolina in 7. I love the way the Islanders have been playing down the last month and a half. They've won 12 out of basically 18 games. Now, granted, it's not against the Carolina Hurricanes because one of those losses was against the Carolina Hurricanes, but you got to love the way that they've been playing. It's funny, Phil, you mentioned who's going to be in net because we're going to be talking more about who the Islanders have in net in Bar Talk. But I think the Islanders have a guy who's going to coach them a little bit stronger and motivate them more. But Carolina is a juggernaut this year. And I think that's what's going to end up prevailing. Carolina's been in situations like this before, like against the Boston Bruins a few years ago. And I think home ice is going to hold serve in this series. That's what it's going to come down to. Anthony, what do you got?
So I'm going to go with the Hurricanes in 6. I just think they're a better team. I mean, there's no denying that. With that said, though, the Islanders are not going to make Carolina come out of this series not hurting. The Islanders are going to hammer them. They're going to play physical.
Please do.
As Phil mentioned, they beat them in 2019. They beat them last year, and now they're playing them again. I think there's starting to be the kind of not really bad blood, but they know this team has beat them twice already, and they're going to come out hard. And if they lose, they're like I said, they're not going to make it easy for the Hurricanes, and the Hurricanes are going to come out limping into round 2 because the Islanders are going to give them a run for their money. As Phil alluded to earlier, Barzal was hurt last year. He came back for game 1. He wasn't at 100%. Horvat had just been acquired. He's settled in now, so they're better. They're playing better. So I think they're going to give the Hurricanes a fight, but still the Hurricanes in 6.
Anthony, let me just ask one more question before we go to the DraftKings break and then go into Bar Talk. What do you think about that Alexander Romanov can lay out a big hit and change around this series.
I mean, yeah, stuff like that certainly can affect the series, and that's what I'm alluding to. I mean, the Islanders are going to be physical. You know, they're going to come out and they're going to hit them hard. Romanov's going to be physical. You know, Clutterbuck and Martin certainly have lost a step. You know, this is probably their last hurrahs. I think they're going to come out and put whatever's left on their body, and they're going to hit everything that moves. So they're going to try to be as physical as they can. And you know, the power of a belief is a strong thing. You know,
Yeah.
if the Islanders steal a game in Carolina, and then they go home at UBS and it's rocking, and they take another game, you know, then that changes everything. So, but again, you know, like I said, you're right, Mark. I think physicality can shift the series around with a big hit or a big play. So yeah, that's certainly a valid point, and we'll just have to see what happens when the puck drops.
I just want to add one thing real quick, very, very quick. With what Anthony is saying there, Carolina plays balls to the wall, and they're 100% foot all the way to the floor all year. And it seems like they gas out a lot, and they've gassed out in the past in the playoffs. Can they sustain that style of play for another series against a team that's going to want to beat the living piss out of them for as long as they can do it for? So that's one thing I would keep track of.
Well, we're going to keep track of that a lot. And this is the third time, as you said, since 2019 that these two teams are going to be facing. I can't wait to see what it's going to look like. Everybody.
Your ideas are intriguing to me, and I wish to subscribe to your newsletter.